challenges are so amazing. There, it looks good. We're good. We're good. We are good. We are good. Cool. All right. So, what we want to talk about is how rules cause breakdowns. And this is something that, yeah, this is mission critical because this is the thing that, so let's just, how many of us have had arguments in our life, right? Like, how many of us have made assumptions about certain people and then had like real conversations and real transparent conversations and then find out that what we assumed was not even close to what reality was? How many of us have done that, right? Like, I've done it, I can't tell you how many times. And this is why this conversation is so important, is because some of the things that I'm going to share with you in this could literally be the thing that helps you understand how that's created, and not only how it's created to prevent it from this point forward, and you not take it personal when there's a miscommunication. See, we've all heard that when our expectations aren't met, that's when we get disappointed. And the reason this happens is because when we have an expectation, we literally project that onto somebody else. And the reason, well, just so that you know that what determines the quality of your life is the images that you have in your head and the scripts that you tell yourself. Like, that's what really determines everything in your life. It's it, and what you have going on the inside of it is what you're going to project on the outside. So if you think a certain thing or make an assumption, right? Like, we've all heard about what the word assume means. And the reason that we assume is because we want to protect ourselves from being hurt, right? And look at the angle that someone's working on us or whatever, and it's based on past things that we've had in our history that we don't want to experience again. So we are constantly scanning, what do I pay attention to? And this can cause some issues, because what we're scanning for is the unconscious rules that we have set about certain things. So how many of you have had friends, right? Like, we've all had friends, and there are certain things about that friendship that ends up upsetting you, or you get offended, or you get frustrated, or um, get triggered in certain ways. Well, there's reasons that's happening. The reason this is happening is because you have rules about what a friendship is supposed to be. You have rules about how an employer is supposed to treat you. You have rules about how people are supposed to drive. Thank you very much. This is one of the ones that I get to work with all the time, because one of the things that I'm just being completely transparent with everybody, is one of the areas that I get to grow, one of the opportunities that I get to grow is driving, right? Because I mean, I love to drive, and I'm a pretty assertive driver. And the thing that causes more car accidents than anything is hesitation. It's people that freak out, they overreact, and that's what causes the accidents. Like, I learned how to do most of my driving up in North Dakota, so I'm very familiar with black ice and whiteout blizzards and driving when it's 80 below zero, 100 below zero, whatever. So I've driven in really, really extreme weather. I mean, I went over Donner's Pass with an 18 wheeler and black ice, and so I mean, I've done lots of different things driving, and I have rules around driving. And one of them that I get irritated by is people that are on their phone, or they're totally checked out and not even really paying attention to what's going on around them. And see, when we look at, why do I get upset? Why do I get offended? Why do I have this fear come up? Like, whenever we are in these states, the first thing that we've got to ask ourselves is, what are my rules about this? And if we have not communicated these rules to the other person, then what we've done is we've literally, well, in a way, I mean, it's pretty extreme, but it's really what's happening, is that we have betrayed ourselves, and we haven't been clear or transparent with somebody of what's really going on. But see, the reason most of us, and I know I certainly have had times in my life where this has been something that I've challenged with, is that we struggle being vulnerable and really letting somebody know who we are, because we've got these narratives inside of us that if I am really transparent and let somebody know who I am, I'm going to be rejected, because we've had history where we shared our voice. And when we shared our voice, we had a certain experience with that. And that experience was unpleasant. Like, some of us, and I know I certainly had experiences like that, we get humiliated. And we want to do every single thing that we can to not ever experience that humiliation again. And if you recognize that this is where shame, this is where we get entangled with shame, is through the humiliating experiences. And so we don't ever want to experience this again. And this is the opportunity for us to have magnificent changes within ourselves, because what we do is we end up giving everybody else the power to run our inner world and expect people to show up in a certain way. And when we do that, we literally set ourselves up to be betrayed, because one, we're not clear on what our unconscious rules are about how certain things are supposed to be, like what a relationship is supposed to be, what a friendship's supposed to be, what finances are supposed to be like, how to raise a kid, good sex, good communication, what is fun, like all of these different components of having different levels and different types of relationships. We don't even know what our unconscious rules are about these things, but yet we get triggered all the time. And this is what's really important, is that what causes us to, and sometimes I've had it happen to the point where I literally felt like I was being turned inside out. And the reason that is because when our rules are violated, we can come unglued. Like we can, depending on how our history has, how intense our historical experience has been around our rules, that we don't even know has happened. So for example, um like if we have um an experience where somebody was unfaithful to us, we'll just say that somebody was unfaithful to us, and there's a certain narrative that we experienced in that where this happened. And so what we're constantly doing is looking for the signs. And if we start recognizing those signs, what we are immediately going to do is we are going to project that onto another situation. And that's where we're going to communicate from, right? So if we're not clear about what our rules are, then again, we're just going to react. And someone's like, what's up? Right. And the next thing that we'll know is we are in an unresourceful state. Our body has taken over and we are reacting. And reacting can be getting upset. It can be distancing ourselves. It can be ghosting somebody. There's lots of different ways that we can react. And this is an opportunity for us to really look at, what are my rules? Because if we don't understand what our rules are, my friends, we will not understand when they're being violated. So my encouragement to you is, what are your rules around friendship, right? Like, how often should your friend communicate with you? How often, and how should they text you back right away? Like just looking at the different things in your life and looking at when you have an emotional charge about how somebody shows up or doesn't show up, looking at what are my rules around this, because this is an opportunity. Life is our how we live in a house of mirrors. Like everything in our life is a reflection of who we are. So the more we intentional that we can get about looking at and inventorying what's going on in our inner world, the more power we are going to have, the more we are going to be clear. Clarity gives us the momentum. Clarity gives us knowing where we can focus on, because we've all experienced, like when we are in an unresourceful state, it literally feels like our inner world's exploding, right? It's just like, again, going to a grocery store. So you can understand what an unresourceful state and experience can look like, is that we can go to a grocery store hungry, and we want to do everything that we can to get out of that state as soon as possible, because our body is literally in a state of survival. Excuse me. So we are coming from a state of desperation, and we want to just grab anything we can to get our body so that it feels better. Well, we also do this in finances. We also do this in relationships. We do this in friendships. We do this in business. We do this in a lot of different areas. So it's really important to understand, the more you understand your unconscious rules about things, subconscious rules, well, be unconscious and subconscious rules about things, then you can understand how to navigate who you are, so that you can put yourself into the state that you want to be in, so that when you look at or in a certain environment that might trigger you, you can be in a resourceful state and it's not going to have the impact on you, right? Like just being in a place where you are absolutely love yourself, you appreciate yourself, you're okay with who you are. The more you're able in that state, and really enjoy your company, then you're not going to be so impacted when other people show up the way they show up, because you're going to be in a higher state. And because you're in a higher state, you're not going to be as impacted as much. However, when you're in a lower state, you're going to be a lot more reactive, right? Like when we're hungry, when we're tired, when we're stressed out, when our body's full of cortisol, when we are not doing the things that we get to do that keeps us feeling energized, feeling momentum, feeling the different things that we can do to get into, like, being in a creative state releases serotonin, right? This makes us feel, and dopamine, right? So there's lots of things that we do what releases the same chemicals, but is it healthy for us, right? Like drinking a beer can make us feel good temporarily, but the after effects of it is not going to have the same effects on us that if we went and created something, that if we worked out, that if we went and got vitamin D, that if we had a conversation with somebody that was a stimulating, impactful conversation, right? So it's really looking at, how do I get myself in this resourceful state so that when my rules are violated, I don't react to a sense with such intensity. But again, the opportunity is for, when are you offended? When is it that you have charge behind something? Because when we get animated, what that is it's like a charge that's been trapped within our neurology, in the energy within our molecular makeup. Just like there's some things that I've been experiencing recently. I just heard a song today, and man, did it bring up a lot of stuff about my childhood. And it's just the journey that I've been on this last 18 months has really revealed a lot deeper stuff going on within my internal world. And because I've been in that space, it's allowed me to be a lot more sensitive to some other things. And because of that, there are things that come up, and it just lands, and it just animates that emotion inside of me. And I mean, I got pretty emotional today, of taking me back, of just like, wow, that was pretty incredible. But see, our subconscious buries things, and it does it so that it can operate as efficient as it possible. But the thing is our body's going to reveal what has to be looked at later. It's just like, it's always called our dashboard, our life's dashboard. It's like we have on our car, we have certain things. Like I just took my car in because I had a warning light come on that I had to go check out and see what it was, because these warning lights are all about something needs to be looked at within the car. Well, if we're in touch with our body, then we can understand that there's certain things that come up within us that are doing the exact same thing, right? And that's where I'm saying, when you have a breakdown in communication, it's an opportunity for us to look at, for one is, how did this get created? Was I clear in what I communicated? If I wasn't clear, then how do I get to what is the opportunity that I get to do? And this is, again, most people communicate at a very surface level, and they interpret things at a lot deeper level. And so it's getting more clear within yourself on how you interpret things. And again, when we're communicating through text, that's only 7% of communication, and which means 93% of it is interpreted subconsciously. And this is one of the biggest reasons why there's major breakdowns, is people are communicated with very limited means of communication. So, excuse me, what is your rules around being respected? What are your rules about what it means to be loved? What are your rules around being kind, being treated kindly? All of these things play massively into how we show up. And called life is that, there we go. Says I lost communication with my mic. The more clear we are with the relationship we have with ourselves, then the more we're going to understand how things unfold with the communication and the relationships we have with other people. The most important relationship in your life is you. That's the most important relationship, because how you have the relationship with you is going to determine how things land. It's going to determine how your body responds to certain things. Um, how you're going to interpret stuff. Again, it's really understanding this relationship. And the more you're able to understand that, the other part of it is that you're going to be able to communicate that with somebody else. and be more clear about what's going on. But again, most people, our greatest power, our greatest agency is our ability to be vulnerable with somebody else. But again, it's that's where we start bringing up the things that we've protected most of our lives as being vulnerable. So I would encourage you to really look at what are your rules around what you have for friendships, what you have, and the different types of relations, friendships that you have in your life. What are your rules around how people should treat you? And then looking at, have I created this? Do I treat other people the way that I want to be treated? Because that's one of the first things that, like, this is one of the things that I've spent a lot of time with in myself in doing lots of inventories throughout my life is when I am triggered, we'll just use the word triggered by someone else. The very first thing I do, and I don't do it always, but I ask myself, do I do this to somebody else? Right? Because again, it's us embracing our own humanity and looking at that, you know what, I can be a very unpleasant person to be around at times, depending on where I'm at, what I have going on. And because I am aware of that, there's things that I do to show up the way that I want to show up, most of the time. And so that gives us the opportunity of, once when we're able to extend grace to ourselves, we're able to extend grace to other people. So what are your rules about how, well, how you want to be treated by others? And then the first thing to ask yourself is, do I treat myself that way? Like, what is the conversations that you have with yourself about when things don't turn out the way that you had hoped that they had turned out, right? Like, this is one of the biggest things with relationships. I mean, some relationships go in a different direction than what both people hope for, but some of it is because of alignment. It's because of decisions that were made in different states and different seasons in life. And so the more we can look at this and put things in context, the more we can we can let go of things and learn to live in more of a resourceful state within our lives. So always look at, what are your rules? We have rules in the different domains. What are your rules about health? Right? And you can see how people show up and see what their rules are. Like, working out, do they work out? Do they eat healthy? Do they get rest? Do they take vacations? Do they, I mean, there's lots of different things, and you can really see how somebody, the reflection of somebody, and just seeing the different roles that they have. And the more rules you have in a particular domain, the higher the probability is that you're going to be disappointed, right? So that part is, encourage you to use getting clear about what your rules are and creating rules that are more ambiguous, right? Like having, so like, what does success mean to you? Like, how do you know when you've had success? Right. So for me, I adopted what Napoleon Hills was, which is the pursuit of something greater, right? Like, I'm always in success because I'm always living in that state. What are your rules around failure? Great one, because there's no such thing as failure. Failure is nothing more than feedback, right? But it's these rules that you set up for yourself that causes us resistance when we want to take risks, when we want to step out into the unknown. um, we have them in all areas of life, right? And if you, like, if you have for your body, like, you got to have certain measurements, you got to have certain body fat, you've got to have resting heart rate. The more rules you lay around that, the more the probability you're going to be disappointed. And asking, why do we set up so many rules, is because sometimes us being in a state of disappointment is alignment with our barometer of what we were conditioned to as a child. And so we've all heard self-fulfilling prophecy, but understanding that at a much deeper level on what that really really looks like. Because as a child, we had an intuition, and everything is energy and vibration. So there's certain experiences that we had as children vibrationally, and this is some of the stuff that I'm looking at, like me and caffeine. Like, this is one of the areas I get to look at, is like, okay, cool, what am I doing to create the same barometer that I experienced when I was younger, and learning how to relax more. Like, for me, going into calm, going into peace, going into slowing down. And I've put a lot of energy into this. It's just almost an oxymoron in saying that. Do a lot of breath work to get my body to learn how to rest. I've had a lot of PTSD. And so looking at the barometers, but again, This is all has to do with our rules. It has to do with our own subconscious rules that we have created, whether we took them on or whether we decided to. Because, I used to have rules about what I thought intelligence was. What does intelligent mean to you? Like, what is being a good person mean to you? What does a godly person mean to you? What does being a good partner mean to you? What does having a partner mean to you? Like, all of these things we have rules around them. And if we don't know what they are, we will not know the evidence when we have it. Right. So this is the other part of you looking at, and this is the other part is a lot of people look at, when you ask somebody what they want, most people, they will tell you what they don't want. And why do they keep getting what they want is because the subconscious does not filter things through positive or negative. Right. So it's just you're sending out a vibration of the focus of you're focusing on what you don't want. And because of that vibration, that's what you keep attracting. Right. So look at your rules. Your rules will reveal a lot to you, and it will put you in a place where you have more agency, which is your ability to choose congruently, integrously, and looking at where you get opportunities to close some loops, right? Because I share this with business owners, and most of my clients, like not all of them, but most of them are business owners, like 7 and 8 figure business owners. Is that the things that we don't close, they're left open subconsciously. And the most expensive, the greatest cost, the most thing that costs us more than anything is the feedback that we never get. Right. And so there are relationships that have just gone south, to use simple terms. The relationships that have gone south probably were because there were things that were never communicated, and feelings got hurt, and nobody shared or talked about those feelings. And because the person, each party probably wasn't really in touch with who they were, and they weren't integrous within themselves, and allow the relationships to dissolve rather than seeing it as an opportunity to get more clear about who they are and what they create. Right. Again, life doesn't happen to us or for us. Like some people say, it happens through us. And we are the creators of our lives, meaning we are the ones that are the narrators. We are the ones that are the authority, the authorship of defining what each experience really means, which is all based off our rules, right? Like, what determines if you have a good day or not? What are your rules around that? What are your rules around being grateful, which is an area that I've got to work on a whole bunch. So I hope this serves you. I hope this opens up some more opportunity for who you are. And please join our group over at the potentialzonegroup.com. Lots of amazing things are happening over there. And be sure to be a part of the workshop that I'm going to be doing here real soon at masteringpotential.com. And we're going to be doing an amazing workshop over there coming soon. And again, I appreciate you being here. Stay tuned. I'll be doing another show on Thursday night. And thank you for your time. I hope you have an amazing day. And as always, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing your time with me. And as always, my friends, live like your life depends on it, because it does. Have a blessed day. Much love.